Have you ever wondered if a single act of betrayal, a whispered promise broken in the dead of night, could ripple through time, meticulously dismantling a family's future? This video unveils a story where trust wasn't just lost, but strategically eroded, leading to an almost unthinkable reckoning. Prepare to witness the terrifying power of a patiently planned revenge. They say in the old farming towns of Missouri, when the moon hangs full and heavy over the cornfields, you can still hear the echo of promises made and broken. This is the story of the Hartwell family, and the oath sworn beneath that very moon, an oath that would take 25 years to collect its due. The summer of 1998 was sweltering in Ashford County. The Hartwell farm had stood for 3 generations, 200 acres of rich black soil that had fed the family through depression and drought. Old Samuel Hartwell, weathered as the barn wood, had 2 sons. Thomas, the elder, steady as the seasons, and Jacob, younger by 3 years, charismatic as a summer storm. On an August night, with cicadas screaming in the darkness, the brothers stood in the equipment barn. Their father had suffered a stroke that morning. Between them lay the farm's future, and in Thomas's calloused hands, a handwritten will their father had been too sick to finalize with lawyers. "We split it even," Thomas said, his voice rough with emotion. "Pa always wanted us to work it together. That's what's right, Jake. 50-50, no matter what this paper says." Jacob clasped his brother's hand beneath the moonlight streaming through the barn door. "On my life, Tom. Brothers before everything. We'll build this place up together, for Pa, for our families." They shook on it. The moon witnessed. But the moon also remembers. 3 months after their father's funeral, Jacob filed the original will in probate court. The unsigned document left everything to Thomas as the eldest, but Jacob had found a legal technicality. Without the signature, the state's intestacy laws applied, and as co-heirs, they would split the estate. Except Jacob had done something else. Late one night, he'd made copies of financial documents, loan applications, bank statements, and he'd slowly, methodically, begun to forge Thomas's signature on new loans against the farm's equity. Small ones at first. For equipment, he told the banks. For improvements. The money went into accounts Thomas never saw. Thomas, trusting his brother, had signed a general power of attorney, just in case, when Jacob said they needed it for farm business. He never imagined how that signature could be weaponized. By 2003, when Thomas finally discovered the discrepancies, $340,000 had been siphoned away. Jacob had already moved to Kansas City, investing the stolen money in a real estate venture that was booming. When confronted, Jacob's lawyer sent a letter. "Any accusations of fraud will be met with counterclaims of financial mismanagement and defamation." Thomas had 3 young children and a wife working double shifts at the hospital. He couldn't afford a legal battle that might take years. The farm was already drowning in the debt Jacob had created. He had a choice: fight and lose everything for certain, or work triple time to save what remained. He chose his children's future over justice. But he remembered the moonlight oath. For 20 years, Thomas Hartwell said nothing to anyone outside his wife. Not to his children. Not to other family. Not to the community that whispered about the Hartwell split, and assumed it was just another case of brothers who couldn't get along. He worked. God, how he worked. Dawn to midnight, 7 days a week. He diversified: organic vegetables, a farm stand, agritourism in the fall. His wife Sarah became his partner in a way that forged them into something unbreakable. They paid down Jacob's fraudulent debts dollar by excruciating dollar. Meanwhile, Jacob thrived. His real estate company, built on Thomas's stolen money, grew into a regional powerhouse. He married into a wealthy family. He posted photos of luxury vacations while Thomas repaired 40-year-old tractors with baling wire and prayer. But Thomas was doing something else too. Every document, every bank statement, every forged signature. He kept it all, organized, dated, notarized when possible. He hired a forensic accountant, paying her in installments over 8 years to build an ironclad case. He waited for statutes of limitations to expire on smaller claims while the largest ones, wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, remained viable. He contacted every person Jacob had done business with over 2 decades. Every disgruntled partner, every burned investor, every employee Jacob had cheated. He became a shadow, collecting threads of evidence like a spider building a web. And he waited for the perfect moment. The moment when Jacob had the most to lose. In the spring of 2023, Jacob Hartwell was on top of the world. His company, Hartwell Prestige Properties, was about to close a $45 million commercial development deal, the crowning achievement of his career. The contract required spotless financials and background checks. Jacob's partners were a conservative investment group that prided itself on integrity and American values. 1 week before signing, Thomas made his move. The FBI received a meticulously documented package containing 25 years of evidence. Wire transfers traced to the penny. Forged signatures analyzed by 3 independent experts. Testimony from 12 witnesses about Jacob's pattern of fraud. The forensic accountant's 300-page report. Simultaneously, Thomas filed a civil lawsuit, not for the original $340,000, but for $2.8 million. Every dollar Jacob had made through his company, Thomas's lawyer argued, was fruit of the poisonous tree, built on capital stolen through identity theft and fraud. The local newspaper received an anonymous package. Thomas was careful, always careful. The headline read, "Local real estate mogul built empire on fraud, brother claims." Jacob's world collapsed in 72 hours. The $45 million deal evaporated. His partners, horrified by the publicity and FBI investigation, severed all ties. 3 other developments fell through as banks froze his assets. His wife, from the wealthy family, filed for divorce when she realized her own inheritance might be at risk in the lawsuit. The FBI investigation uncovered more, much more. Jacob hadn't stopped with Thomas. Over 25 years, he defrauded at least 6 other people using similar tactics. The fraud Thomas documented opened doors to everything else. In November 2023, Jacob Hartwell was indicted on 23 federal counts. On a cold December evening, Jacob showed up at the Hartwell farm. Thomas met him in the same equipment barn where they'd made their oath 25 years before. Jacob was unrecognizable, gaunt, hollowed out, aged a decade in 6 months. "Why now?" Jacob asked, his voice barely a whisper. "After all these years, why now?" Thomas looked at his brother, and for a moment, the weight of a quarter-century showed on his face. "Because I needed you to build something," Thomas said quietly. "I needed you to have everything you ever wanted. To feel untouchable. Successful. Happy." He paused, watching the moon through the barn door, the same moon that had witnessed their oath. "Because taking it from you when you had nothing would have been empty, Jake. But taking it when you had everything? When you finally felt safe? When you thought you'd gotten away with it?" Thomas's voice was steady, devoid of triumph or anger. Just factual. Patient. "That's when a broken oath comes due. That's when you understand what you really took from me. Not just money. You took 25 years I could never get back. 25 years of my kids asking why we couldn't afford things their cousins had. 25 years of my wife crying from exhaustion. 25 years of wondering if we'd lose everything Paul built." Jacob was shaking now. "I'm sorry. God, Tom, I'm so sorry. I was young and stupid and greedy and—" "I know," Thomas said. "But sorry doesn't give me those years back. Sorry doesn't erase what you became. You didn't just break a promise, Jake. You broke something in our family that can never be fixed. And you kept breaking it, every single day for 25 years, every time you looked at what you'd built and felt proud instead of ashamed. What happens now?" Jacob asked. Thomas turned to leave, then stopped at the barn door. "Now. You face what's coming. The trial. Prison, probably. The people you hurt getting their justice. And every day in there, You remember a promise made under a moonlight you didn't respect. He paused. And maybe, if you've got 10 or 15 years to think about it, you become someone who understands what an oath means. But Jake. Thomas looked back one last time. We're not brothers anymore. That died the night you decided money was worth more than your word. The trial took place in the summer of 2024. Jacob Hartwell was convicted on 19 of 23 counts. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $4.7 million in restitution to his victims. Thomas received $2.1 million in the civil settlement, though after legal fees and taxes, it was closer to $1.3 million. It would never equal what was taken, but it secured his farm's future. The Hartwell farm still stands, now run by Thomas's daughter Emma, who studied agricultural business and came home to work the land her grandfather loved. Thomas and Sarah, now in their 60s, finally took their first real vacation. A week at a cabin by a lake, where they did nothing but rest. Jacob sends letters from prison. Thomas doesn't read them. Sarah keeps them in a box in the attic, unopened. Maybe someday, she tells Thomas. But not today. On full moon nights, when the corn grows tall and the air hangs heavy with summer heat, locals say you can still feel it in that old equipment barn, the weight of a promise broken, and the terrible patience of a betrayal that waited decades to be answered. Because the moon sees everything. And the moon always remembers. In the old towns where families have deep roots and memories run longer than lives, they teach their children this. An oath sworn in moonlight isn't just a promise, it's a contract with time itself. Break it, and you may prosper for years, even decades. But time is patient. Time will wait. And when the reckoning comes, it will take everything you built on borrowed trust and turn it to dust. The Hartwells learned this truth the hardest way possible. One brother learned you cannot build a real life on stolen foundations. The other learned that justice delayed is not justice denied. Sometimes it's just justice becoming more terrible. And somewhere in Missouri, on nights when the moon hangs full and heavy over the cornfields, that old equipment barn still stands, a monument to the terrifying power of patience and the devastating cost of betraying those who love you most. This folktale serves as a cautionary reminder. In the heartland of America, where handshake deals still mean something and family names carry weight across generations, a broken promise isn't just a personal failure. It's a debt that compounds over time, until the interest alone can destroy everything you've built. If you enjoy this story, subscribe for more.